In this lesson, we'll look at what are called improper integrals. Before, we've been dealing with definite integrals that have numeric limits. In our case, we're going to be dealing with integrals that involve infinity or negative infinity as one of the limits. Those are typically what we call type 1 improper integrals. So, how do we evaluate those particular integrals? Well, we look at the limits of these integrals as the upper limit goes to infinity, or as the lower limit goes to negative infinity. And we'll see an extension of that in just a minute. So our first example is, how do we determine the convergence, which is the term used when the integral does level off to a particular value, of the integral from 1 to infinity of dx over x squared. So as just mentioned, in order to help us evaluate these limits, we look at, these integrals, we look at the limit as the upper limit goes to infinity. In this case, we're going to look at the limit as b goes to infinity of the integral from 1 to b of dx over x squared. And how do we do that? Well, we proceed just like we find any other integral. We find the antiderivative, which in this case is negative 1 over x, and do the limit as b goes to infinity of this particular integral. Notice how we don't use the infinity as one of our limits. This is something that's frowned upon in calculus classes. So we go on to evaluate it as the limit as b goes to infinity of negative 1 over b minus negative 1 over 1, where we just plugged in the 1 as the lower limit, and we're just evaluating just as we do with FTC. And now at this stage, with any other improper integral, and with this one in particular, we want to make sure that we do the limit as b goes to infinity of negative 1 over b. We'll find out that we will evaluate some common limits that we should know. In this case, the b to the first offers the higher degree, and so the limit as b goes to infinity of negative 1 over b is 0, and then we're just left with 1. Thus, we say that the integral converges to 1. In other words, as the upper limit goes to infinity, the value of the integral levels off at 1.